Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I have another technique for using bullet nib markers for you, and I'm going to be doing cell shading or block shading, and I'm using my Winsor & Newton Pro markers and some of my Spectrum Noir markers as well, because I didn't have a variation of blue markers in my Pro marker, so I added some of my Spectrum Noir markers. So this technique is basically, rather than blending markers or blending your colours to get a gradient in the shading, you just colour in different blocks, if that makes sense. I think it's easier to see that rather than explain it. So what you need to do first is you need to draw out all the different shapes that you're going to colour in, and you can print off your reference sheet if you want to use a reference for your drawing. You can print off the reference image and draw over it and draw over where all the blocks of shading are. I didn't do this because I used a reference image of some water and I could see it quite clearly in that image, but you can by all means print your own image off and draw on it if you think this is easier. And it kind of looks a little bit like a colour by numbers when you do this. So if you're used to doing colour by numbers, you'll know that it has some outlines and then numbers, so you will colour it in with the number corresponding to the colour. And you can also do this as well if it helps you. If you want to plan out where you put the colours, you can put little numbers in to remind you what colour goes where. That's also quite a good idea, so you kind of have your very own colour by numbers. So when colouring using this technique, I find it's best to start with the darker colours first and then work your way from dark to light. Go from dark to mid-tones to light, because then you can easily see where the shadows go, especially if you're not planning it out with numbers. If you're just going for it, it's a lot easier to work from dark to light because you can see the contrast a lot easier. And also leave some of the white of the paper rather than adding too many highlights on top, because you will need the white of the paper to add that deep contrast. And you also don't want to put too many midtones next to each other, too many similar midtones next to each other, because this will look a bit more like blended rather than block shading. Because the idea of block shading is you can see the difference in colours. And the concept of block shading comes from pop art and video games and comic books. It's got a very kind of vibrant look to it and a very sort of unrealistic. It kind of makes realistic pictures look a little bit more comic booky, a little bit more pop art, and I think it looks quite effective. And bullet nibs work really well for this because you are just colouring in the block, you're not worrying about blending, and it's quite a good technique for using up your bullet nib markers if you have a lot lying around, or if you are just new to colouring with alcohol based markers and you are trying to work out how they lay down on the page. And I am using a piece of Bristol board for this, a very smooth surface, because I didn't want there to be any bleed. If I use cartridge paper, for example, there's a little bit of bleed, and you want to get some as crisp edges as you can for this technique, so that's why I am using the smoothest paper that I have. So when I was filming this video, I was having quite a bit of issue with the lighting, and I didn't really realise just how much till I came to editing. And the reason for this is because it's recently been really hot and really sunny in the UK, and on the day that I was filming it decided to have lots of showers, so it kept going from really sunny to really dark showers, and this is why the lighting is a little bit off in this video. And I'm really annoyed about this because I feel like my lighting has got better recently, and I look at this footage and I feel like I'm going backwards, but I tried to do as best as I could with the editing, and I'm really sorry about the lighting and how it looks a little bit flashy at times. This is because when I speed up the footage, obviously the lighting speeds up as well, the different lighting changes speed up, so I'm really sorry about that. I think it does get better towards the end, and I think the worst of it is over now. So back to the artwork. This is the second in my series of techniques for using bullet nib markers. The first technique I used was pointillism, and I'll link that video in a card above and at the end if you want to go and check that out. I think bullet nib markers get a bit of a bad press in the art world because they aren't as good at blending as brushed in markers, and they're a bit cheaper and not a lot of people like them, but I think they're really good, especially when you're starting off using alcohol based markers, because they are cheaper. You don't want to be spending lots of money on a nice set of brush nibs if you don't know if you're going to like alcohol based markers, and I think you can do some really good techniques with them, and that's why I wanted to make this series, because I wanted to give you different techniques that you can use that aren't just kind of blending the markers together, and techniques that are especially good for bullet nib markers. And the pointillism technique, for example, is really good for using bullet nib markers because you get the same size dot each time you make a dot, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you want some more videos like this of how to make some art using bullet nib markers, do let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you have any techniques of your own for using bullet nib markers. I'd really love to hear them. So you don't actually have to use alcohol-based markers for this technique. You can use water-based markers. So if all you have is a set of Crayola markers, for example, they would work just as well. The only advantage that alcohol markers have for this technique is that you can layer on top. So for example, a few of the colours, I did a couple of layers of the same colour just to make the colour look a bit more even and a bit less streaky. And I also went over the top of some of the lighter colours afterwards with a darker one to get a darker block. And you can also mix the colours as well with alcohol-based markers. Alcohol-based markers help you to layer, so if you do want to change bits, you do have that opportunity. But like I said, water-based markers will work just as well. You just have to plan it a lot more carefully if you use water-based markers. So if you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Katie. I make art videos, I do speed paints, challenges, discussions, all the kind of thing that you would expect to see on an art channel really. And I have my own little mouse character called Charlie McNeil, and he appears quite a lot on my channel, so do go and have a look for him and have a browse. And do feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because sometimes YouTube doesn't put videos in subscription boxes, so hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. And I hopefully soon will be reaching 500 subscribers, well, soonish anyway. And when I do, I want to do a Q&A video, so if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, please leave it in the comments below, or in a comment on another one of my videos. I'll find them and I'll start making a list for when that happens. So yeah, any questions, let me know. So once I had finished colouring in all of the blocks of colour with my bullet nib markers, I used the white gel pen to neaten up the edges. And I did this because some of the ripples needed to taper off into a fine edge, and it was quite hard to do this with bullet nib markers because they don't go to quite as fine a point as you can get with a brush marker. And I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people prefer brush markers, which is understandable. So I used the white gel pen to neaten up edges, and I also used the white gel pen to add some highlights in between some of the midtones to make it pop a little bit more. But I didn't actually add too many highlights with the white gel pen. I was quite good. I mainly used it for neatening it up, and I used it for the highlights on the water droplet to make it pop out a little bit more. But I really like how this piece turned out. I really like this technique, and I think I'm definitely going to use it again. And I do look forward to making some more videos about techniques for bullet nib markers, and I'm going to go off now and research another technique. So coming to the end of the video now, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, emotionally, please do leave it a like down below, as that really helps me out. And I'll see you next Thursday. Bye for now.